Yo, yo, yo! What's up, YouTubers? So I just thought about that Venn diagram thing, right? And I say I got multiple goals in my life, which we all do, you know. You need the house, you need to provide for your wife and children. You know, there's business, there's side hustle, and, you know, entertainment. You know, Bible stuff, congregations, sports, activities, and, you know, health, fitness, all these different things. Now, imagine this thing is a Venn diagram. That's just picture like a circle. They just pick three, and then the three overlap type of deal. And then I was sitting there thinking about the overlap part. Like, some are going to overlap more than others. You know what I mean? I can see where diet and exercise would increase my brain power due to circulation. And so with diet, that could be its own circle. And then, what even is a diet? You know what I mean? And then, like, the building blocks of my carcass, you know, vitamins, minerals, hydration, all this other kind of stuff. How does that work so I can keep my, you know, freaking emotional state and my thinking and my, you know, hormones in whack? You know, I want to make sure my lymph nodes are working properly and my hydraulics are functional. And, you know, just, you know, stay a little salty. Keep my comprehension going. You know, I want to enhance my senses. You know, I want to feel all I can feel. I want to see all I can see and hear and do. And, connect the dots, all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, we're coming up with a lot of circles here for this Venn diagram just off of diet and how that affects everything else. So I would call that the priority bubble. You know, and your priorities are going to rise to the top, stuff like that. And the initial of just saying these things is, those are like little thought bubbles, right? They just come up and they just burst after a while. And then, like, one of them will hold a little bit longer, so I'll be able to let it rise up and observe it longer so I can look at it, right? And then I'm going to think a lot faster than I can talk. And I can definitely make this recording much easier than if I was writing it down. Yeah, I could do like a text-to-talk type of situation, but I could make this video, upload this to YouTube for free, and then watch the video with the text turned on, videotape that, and now I have, you know, talking points and everything else like that. So that's not very difficult once you're going in and doing it and doing it and going in and doing it. Now for me, I'm driving down the road, easy traffic, sun comes up, stuff like that. Let's put you on the other deal. Hang on a second. There you are. That might be a little more pleasant. So that's the dash mount or whatever else like that. This dash mount, it's like arming the trigger. You squeeze this deal and the little arms reach out. And when you push the phone in there, it's pressure sensitive to trigger that thing to grab the sides of the phone. So it adapts to any device. And it's, you know, on the phone, on the dash. However, I can pop that little suction cup thing loose. Pro tip, put a small dab of glue on your suction cup. When you stick it to the dash, the suction cup will hold it long enough for the glue to dry. And you want to do just a single dot. A single dot means that when you pull it off, you got less mess to clean on the dash, but the rubber seal thing is still good enough that you can put it on the next vehicle. So that's a pro tip. That one will save you $30 right there every time you trade vehicles. So anyway, you can have this priority bubble thing. Like right now, I can go back, I can rewatch these things that I have named and just write them down. And then I can, I singled out diet. And then, I've made several videos about the Skipper blend, which is, vitamins and minerals and herbs and stuff that I want to ingest on a daily basis, But there's other things, just like with my salts. Okay, let's break this down slightly without going into thorough depth. Just salt, my minerals and salts. I need the iodized salt for the iodine content because I don't eat a lot of seafood, and which I'd like to, but it's got mercury, so the juice is not worth the squeeze. I tried to find regular iodine to add to my, other salts, and it's incredibly hard to find, especially if you're driving around in a 70-foot long vehicle. You can't just park just anywhere, right? So, anyway, iodized salt. I use that a little bit, and then I use the Himalayan pink because it's got a certain mineral profile that I'm assuming is different than Baja Gold salt, which I'm assuming is different than Redmond's salt. Redmond's is from an ancient sea. The Baja Gold, it's from a different location. But it is very high. Yeah, it has 93 minerals in it. And then the Himalayan pink, it's got a different profile, but the mining process is a little suspect because of the location and, the way they do things in India. Might have some heavy metals in it. Maybe not. Then I got some that's from France, and then I got another one that's from the Mediterranean Sea. You know what I mean? So when I add all these salts together, and then I put my spices for, like turmeric, helps my recovery. A little bit of baking soda helps my recovery. So if I'm working out and stuff like that, it helps me recover. But then there's other things, like you would never think of this unless you've been in a truck stuck in a snowstorm, and literally the snow's as high as the door of the truck. So getting out to do stuff is problematic, and then getting back in, you're wet because you're covered in snow, and then you get in, and then there's wetness, and then you're inside of a truck. So there ain't a lot of, room to move around. So if you're laying there, you know what I'm saying, and you just, watch movies and stuff like that, a lot of truckers don't move around that much. You're not getting a lot of steps in or whatever on a regular basis and stuff like that. Anyways, you get sore from just laying down. From just being in a truck, just sitting in this driver's seat, bouncing down the road, depending on what type of vehicle you're in, what type of seat it is. The old trucks would beat you to death. I mean, it's just like getting punched in the kidneys on a regular basis. There's a lot of older drivers got problems with their back and stuff. Anyway, turmeric is surprisingly good for that. Now, I was a roofer for a long time, so I had to lean over and pick up heavy objects. I had to stay leaned over doing the work. So the muscle in my back is thoroughly developed. So I could sit here and drive, 22 hours a day for a week. And it's just all conditioning. But when I eat and it's got that turmeric, it makes it not. Like any soreness I would have had, it ain't there. You know what I mean? And then there's stuff from the, the garlic, the ginger, the cumin, turmeric, paprika, good pepper is for your gut. And then there's like red, pink, white, green, black. You know, and they all have different profiles. They all come from different parts of the world, whatever like that, you know. And then there's stuff. Herbs are for healing, according to the Bible. So I'm like, what herbs heal what? Looking into that. You know, all of this is within the diet bubble. You know what I'm saying? So I got these bubbles, and then if I'll take the time to think about what's right for me, and I take the time to adjust the diet to, okay, these foods are affecting me a certain way, and there's 4 seasons in the earth, and there's seasonal food, you know, so, you know, God made the earth this way. God made people to live on the earth. I'm probably supposed to be eating a lot of meat about the time the deers go into rut. You know, in the wintertime, I probably shouldn't be eating a lot of fruit and grasses and stuff like that. I should be eating meat. Then in the summertime, when the animals in the woods have a lot of ticks on them, I should probably be eating more vegan and a lot less meat. And yeah, that's it. That just makes common sense, critical thinking. You know, if the ancestry was dealing with these things, you know, how would they go about it and all this kind of stuff like that? And then, you know, with our, you know, in the last, you know, 150 years, food's cheap and readily available. And then it got modified. So looking from like 1975 back to, you know, the end of World War II, you know, that's, you know, 45 to 75 is 30 years. That gap right there, we see the proliferation of food and affordable food, but it wasn't really modified food yet. So what was really working right there? You know, what were people eating? What were they doing? You know, there wasn't a whole lot of people that I know of that were, you know, actively dealing with ghee or monk fruit. You know what I mean? Like, it just wasn't a thing really. But they was starting in on the genetically modified grains. And then we see things like Wonder Bread. And we see things like, you know, women smoking cigarettes and all sort of kind of stuff. And we see the beginning of this broken world that we live now. Like, it just turned to shit because all the greed in the world or whatever like that. So, look, just trying to figure out my diet takes me on this whole rabbit hole thing of politics and, you know, and I'm looking at all these systems, you know, the American Medical Association and, you know, the #1 toothpaste recommended by dentists, and the dentist makes more money if your teeth go bad. And then, like, some of the stuff you're cleaning your teeth with, you know, your gums are a direct line to your cardiovascular system. So if I'm putting fluoride in my mouth and it's getting directly into my bloodstream, if it's fluoride in the form of, you know, rocks out of the ground, I mean, that's probably not that bad. But if there's some industrial process and they have a chemical waste product, that if it's in a semi-truck, they have to put a placard on the side of the truck because it's hazardous material. Instead of disposing of that properly and all the expense that sounds like it would bring, if they just add it to toothpaste and then sell it to everybody, they put it in the municipal water supply. At one point, they were taking sewage and forcing farmers to fertilize their dairy farm the sewage, which, I mean, you know, you can take a shit in your compost pile, but sewage on an industrial level, you know, what happens when somebody, you know, they don't finish their medication, they just throw it in the toilet and flush it? You know what I mean? What about all these, you know, feminine hygiene products? What about all these other chemicals? You know, like, you know, when I had to do a class to operate my own septic system there in Texas, and otherwise you got to pay somebody every month to come out and check it or whatever. And well, not every month, but you know, 4 times a year. I think it's down to 3 times now. Anyway, you take this class where you can, you know, check your own stuff and add chlorine to your own septic tank before your sprinkler sprinkles it out in the yard, type of deal. And anyway, in that process, they're like, if anybody's doing chemotherapy, have them use a separate system that because it'll kill all the bacteria. So, you know, you put this stuff in there and it eats the poo, keeps the solids down, and then you're going to have this bubbler thing that blows bubbles to oxygenate the potty water, so the poo eaters will eat the solids, and then the water runs off the top of that into the secondary. The secondary gets the chlorine, and now it's, you know, purified water that sprinkles out into my yard. And then I got to fence off that part of the yard so no animals eat that grass. So I'm like, is this purified or not? The answer to that is no. No, it is not. That is potty water. And it turns out the stuff that I put in the water as a secondary is the worst part of that. But if anybody's got some kind of disease, they just don't even know it. They come over and they drop a deuce, pee and poo, and, you know, file the paperwork on it, flush the stool. That goes into my system. So they're like, if anybody's doing chemotherapy, don't let them use your toilet because they'll kill your turd eaters. There's a wide variety of those. I use baker's yeast. So about once every 2-3 weeks, I dump a package of baker's yeast in my toilet and flush it. And that keeps the turd eaters going. And then on my other septic system, it's old school. The one I'm talking about is aerobic. But the other septic system is old school with lateral lines. And there's no injection of chlorine. So the turd eaters get all the way to the lateral lines, and that actually frees up and clears up the lateral lines. But there again, you know, you can clog all that up with paper, and then you can kill the turd eaters with the toilet paper breaking down. So when they make the toilet paper, the bleaches and the arsenic and all these different things that you're rubbing your butthole with, when that paper breaks down in the system, it will kill the bacteria that would eat the solids. So they can only grow as much as they got oxygen. That's why the aerobic system has a bubbler. Okay? In the other system, they can just eat what they can eat. And then it goes on down the lateral lines. And sometimes the lateral lines will plug up because the solids will get to the top, and then it'll run down in there and plug up. And there's a way, you know, I just got YouTube certified, and I see, you know, there's a company out in California, they're like, clean your lateral lines the green way. And they were talking about using baker's yeast to literally revive a septic system. So I was like, okay, I don't have any problems now, but instead of Rid-X further poisoning the system, I use baker's yeast naturally, you know, eating the poo. And anyway, yeah, because that's the back end. I said, we're still on diet. We're still just on diet. So I got diet and exercise. Okay. Diet, exercise, and then because of my diet and exercise, you get your exercise, you got, push, pull, whatever. I do back and bis, chest and tries, legs and abs. Back and bis, chest and tries, legs and abs. 45 minutes of walking. Recently I've switched up to cardio, watching D Bird on his, basically doing burpees, jumping jacks, pull-ups, stuff like that. You know what I mean? Get the circulations going. So that's increasing. I'm adding a gallon of water every day, which is also good. And so now I'm hydrated, circulated, vitamin charged, and number 2 approved. Kid tested, number 2 approved. I don't know if I guess kids come over and use the toilet too, I guess. That was a cereal commercial reference. Anyways. It's good shit. Anyway. The overlap of these things, so if I could clean up my shit good enough and change out my I can put it in change order, switch my lateral lines to going into the ground on my aerobic system, I could use the rest of my yard to feed animals, right? So I can do the animal stuff, but that sprinkled area, my dogs don't eat grass. So it doesn't matter if my dogs go out there because they shit in the yard too. So it's just right there on top. And then when I let the cows in there, they have that big patties and everything else like that. And then the turkeys will scratch up a pad. So the turkeys are a good complement to the cow patties. And a little bit for the horses, but not really. They, for some reason, they'll just dig right into cow patty, but they'll leave a horse loaf alone. So it doesn't really work as good with that. But if you got your turkeys out there scratching around or whatever else like that, I've yet to find an animal that will eat the fire ants. I guess there is such a thing as ant eaters, but I mean, we don't have any that we can put out in the yard, and I don't think they're very good to eat. So I don't know how that works. But we do have some fire ants, but the fire ants are drastically reduced where there's big cows. So if you got big cows walking around, I think it's collapsing the anthill on the inside. So anyway, in my quest to not die in the apocalypse, I want to have big animals, and I want I want to be able to get around. So if there's no way to get fuel, I think the most effective way to move freight before the invention of a mechanized device was the ox cart. Okay, so people also slay and eat the ox, and but cows are a lot easier to deal with, and sheep process very similarly to deer, and it's a small enough animal that it's a one man could go out there, kill a deer, and process it, get it in the freezer at the end of the day, no big deal. Same thing with a sheep. And then, like, if you take your cow to somebody, you owe them $500 for messing with it, and they want to take a month to get her done. It's got to like hang for a while or whatever. I don't know. I don't profess to know what they do to butcher a cow, but I do know it's significantly more involved than what I'm doing to shoot a deer, from the woods to the table is different. And I think it's just because of the scale. I honestly think I could kill an ox in my backyard and hoist this summit in the air and process it like a deer. And I'm just cutting everything off the bone. I don't need a bone saw. I'm definitely not going to use a freaking sawzall with a DeWalt blade to cut the bones and get pieces of metal in my freaking steak. I will just cut the meat off of the bone and, you know, just live without bone marrow, I guess. I don't know. If you need some bone marrow, we can boil the chicken. You know what I'm saying? So that's just where I'm at with that. I ain't even trying to mess with that. I've cut up 2 cows in my life the same way that I would do a deer, and it is a ridiculous amount of food. It is so much. And I'm telling you right now, if you just leave the chunk of meat, and just cut it down small enough to fit in a gallon Ziploc bag, that gets it done good enough. I mean, for real, and you just throw it in the freezer, same day, you know. It's just, you killed it, you got it strung up, you know what I mean? You got the hole dug for the remnants, and I dig that hole directly underneath where it's hanging. So when it's done, I just let it loose. Once it hits the ground, I cover it up. And that's the end of that. But it's enough food for like freaking 8 families to eat. You know, and you can salt it and stuff like that, and you know, hang it up in the outhouse-looking smokehouse, you know, and all that. So, you know, that's your home. So that's just your homestead. You know what I mean? So that's like a whole other circle. You know, and then you got your finances. That's a circle. So, like, how can I make sure that my homestead is producing income, and then also hedging my tax through depreciation, you know, and I want to keep expanding so that I'm showing more depreciation, and I want a farm of some kind, because the farm can never go out of business no matter how much money it loses, because that's the way that the system is. And then the farm truck can be used to, you know, pull a commercial trailer, so that I can lease on somewhere and pull their trailer with their freight, blah, 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 9 to 5 this deal, or whatever, you know, go out on the road, work for a week, come home, deal with stuff, you know, pull away from this lease drive and hook to my own trailer during the harvest, and just run grain in a belly dump trailer back and forth to the port, and you know, get that money that way. You know, there's all these different options and stuff. You know, and just kind of do what works. And these circles will naturally overlap, but your average guy like me, you know, just your average knuckle dragger, is not going to sit down and draw these out into bubbles and take it from a certain perspective and look at it. But if they did and got real intentional with their finances, with their exercise, diet, with their homestead, and all this other kind of stuff like that, put the focus in it that's necessary, and then what happens is you can take these idea bubbles, these circles, and, you know, you got this big one that I talked about, diet. I dove into it a little bit, okay? And then you got business floating over here and all these other ones, right? And as you segment all the bubbles inside, all the circles inside the thought bubble, and seeing these outcomes and the way that this stuff really works, and that it's working for you, then with the focus and the overlap, you know, you can break these thought bubbles with, you can have all them circles lined up with the bubble, and then you can put these bubbles together, you know what I mean, until you have a cloud, you know, and then this cloud, you know, will make it rain. So you can rule and reign on the earth, guided by the direction of God, by allowing Him, through patience, to guide you into all these things. Okay, so now your highest priority is God, the Creator, and then The only way that I figured all this out is through tragedy and struggle. You know what I mean? And then seeing that it's worth it, and then seeing like the book of Ecclesiastes, this is vanity chasing the wind. Well, everything is, unless God's involved. When God, a lot of people say, but God. Well, I was going to but God. It was so hard, there was no way, but God came through, you know. Or I was going to but. That's a you thing. So you got to get your butt out of the way. You got to acknowledge that God's intervention can happen. So that's, you know, a simultaneous and an individual thing, depending on the circumstance. So as I got this cloud of thought bubbles, and inside these bubbles I have focused very specific circles. If I stack the circles in focus, one on top of the other. So getting back to this Venn diagram thing, generally it's 3 circles and they overlap in the middle. So what can I do to increase the overlap is the point of this video. How can I take diet, exercise, and finances and increase the overlap? You know what I mean? So the easiest way for that particular thing, in my opinion, is to learn how to cook my own food. I want to source nutritious food. I want to buy organic everything. I want to see what I want to spend the money to check my blood work and my genetics to see what type of hindrances or deficiencies I may have currently. And if I supplement, I want to supplement by changing my diet first. And then can my body absorb what it needs from the inputs I'm putting in? Do I need to adjust that? I need to supplement for deficiencies. I do not want to just buy supplements to be supplementing, because that's not financially responsible from, you know, buying the supplements, obviously, but even more so, the fillers and all the bullshit in the pills. So, you know, just because you're buying this vitamin and it's got all this good stuff, well, it might be a synthetic good stuff that blocks organic good stuff receptors, and you might not be able to process based on your genetics. So what's good for Johnny ain't good for Sally, ain't good for Billy, but Ralph can eat anything, whatever, you know what I mean? I guess Ralph's more throwing up. Anyway, so it's very fiscally unsound to supplement to be supplementing and cause further medical need, which is extremely expensive on the back end. You know, you spend your whole life earning money, then you spend all your money trying to get your life back. Type of bullshit deal. So through diet, exercise, and finance Venn diagram, I can minimize those effects of work to get the money, spend the money to get the life back on the back end. So back end mitigation. You know, you want to get your butt out of the way and allow some but God intervention, and so that'll, you know, help you immensely. Just figured out diet, exercise, and finance. All that overlaps by learning how to cook my own food. So I gotta have, you know, I gotta know my heat source. I gotta know my cooking utensils are not poisoning me. I gotta know that the food that I'm buying to cook is not poisoning me. That it's real food. I want my vitamins, minerals, and herbs and everything to be sufficient for proper carcass. I want to know when to eat, when to fast and all this other kind of stuff. I need to know my seasonals as far as what season of life am I in. You know, am I trying to be more prolific right now? You know, am I struggling to reproduce? Do I need to eat accordingly to have good hydraulics and, you know, sufficient seed to plant in my wife to have a baby? And her, you know, develop her system to have a more effective womb because I'm trying to have kids, you know? That season looks a lot different than, you know, 100-hour fast because I'm overweight and concerned that I might have cardiovascular needs. You know, I'm showing some markers of high blood pressure and all this kind of stuff. Maybe I need to alter my diet for that. So that's a different season of life. You know what I mean? But the sooner I know my genetics, the better off I am. My blood type, you know, like, you know, I'm a blood type. I'm a certain blood type, so that means that there's a certain eating peanuts is going to affect me a lot different than eating almonds. It's going to affect me a lot different than eating walnuts. You know, a different genetic type. I need to eat avocado every day versus a different blood type is, you know, you're going to get incredibly fat if you eat an avocado every day. People are different, you know. It's just like when you build an engine. It's a summation of the parts, but then you have to have it specifically tuned for that specific engine. You know, you can have a small block 350 and you can have a 5.7 Hemi. They're incredibly different. Okay? You can have 5 small block 350s and need 5 different tunes with the exact same parts. Each build is different. Just like your fingerprints are not the same as anybody else ever. There's something different. Even if you're identical twins. So finding out what's right for you is incredibly important. And the sooner you know that, and then you can have the opportunity to act appropriately. And then, like, who's right about any of this? So, like, you know, God's opinion is number one. You'll find that written down in the Bible. Start there and expand. You know what I mean? So all these things overlap. All these things overlap. And you can get your priorities in order. Now, you know how to cook, you know what to cook, you know how you feel and eat and all this kind of stuff like that. And, you know, it's time to find a wife, a spouse type of deal. You're more attractive if you know how to cook. Your entire life just got better because you took the time to learn what to cook, what to use to cook, you know, your preferences, your tastes, your likes, dislikes, all this kind of stuff. Like, you've improved the quality of your entire life by what you're consuming, by what you're putting in. At some point in this, you're going to realize, you know, when I watch these Cajun cooks, their spices taste great, but their product is shit. Boudin is gross. The ingredients taste great. I love the stuff. The ingredients are tragically not kosher. It's bad. It's guts, man. It's large intestine of swine. Yuck. I ain't messing with it. It's not kosher. Okay. But you're better off with that than you are with genetically modified, sprayed with whatever pesticides and herbicides in your Cheerios. You'd be better off eating pig intestines than poisonous grain. It's a fact of business. Okay, so anyways, you know, in with the good, out with the bad. At some point, you're going to realize that you're consuming these things and then you're excreting the waste. But part of it is becoming you. You know, and during this journey, I think everybody at some point in time has heard an old guy say, well, it don't taste that good, but it'll make a turd. Talking about, well, you got to eat something, right? Do you? Do you really? Or is that a fallacy? You know, if you think about it, if you're eating food and then you're pooping a lot, or when you poop, the volume of poop is a lot, did you eat too much? What if just the process of digesting food every day, 3 to 7 times a day, for 55 years has wore you out? How much of your daily caloric intake goes into your body processing food versus your body building muscle, healing muscle, reviving your necessary organs and all this other kind of stuff like that? You know what I mean? Maybe if I didn't eat so much, my body would focus its energy on recovery instead of processing the food. Well, that sounds like that would be a really good thing to have if I was exercising to build muscle. So what does that even look like? You know, like, it did looking into that, get YouTube certified, you'll find something else that's incredible. And that incredible find is the bodybuilders very rarely die of cancer. I think you'll find out that these bodybuilders starve themselves to be extremely lean, and then they eat this creatine stuff and everything like that to puff their muscles up right before a show. And then they have these bulk phase and cut phase. And some of these dudes are on a cut phase for 2 weeks. Just water, nothing else, for 2 weeks. And yeah, they do a lot of steroids and everything else like that, and they die. Don't get me wrong. They are people and they die. But they don't die of cancer. It's like, what's up with that? And then now there's all these studies about autophagy where your body's eating itself, and your body ain't stupid. It's going to eat the bad proteins first. So if you eat every day, 3 to 7 times a day for 55 years, your body never, ever got the chance to eat the bad proteins. So this bad protein that's, you know, slightly out of whack. Like, even we've all seen the strawberry that's not the right shape. Don't eat that one. There's something wrong with it. It don't look right. We've all ate the watermelon that doesn't taste like a watermelon. It just tastes like nothing. Don't eat that. It doesn't taste right. If it doesn't taste like a really sweet watermelon with dark black seeds, it's not a watermelon. I prefer the Black Diamond. It is a great watermelon, and the rind itself, it has an extract used for cancer treatment. I think that if you take a watermelon and you cut it in half long ways, and you cut the stuff out of the inside of it and cut the ends off of one of the halves, juice the whole thing. You want half the rind, the green, all the seeds, everything. Grind that whole sucker up, puree it, whatever. Use the, you know, cut it long ways, cut it in half, whichever way it was laying on the ground. You know, it's got a little white spot where it's laying on the ground. So you cut the top off of it, and then the bottom side, the hull of the boat, if you will, put your punch back in there or whatever else like that, and have that where you know, got a ladle, and everybody can get a little drink of, you know, watermelon that's got the rind and everything else in it. Might even put a little shot of, you know, white lightning in there. You know what I mean? Depending on, you know, what type of event it is. But you got this nice place setting. You know what I mean? So that's your financial. you got this, you know, incredibly good for you watermelon juice. So there's your, you know, nutritional circle. And then you got your exercise. So you're outside, you're standing up, you're walking around, you're shooting the shit, you're at the barbecue, you're socializing, which is increasing your health as well. You have a better outlook on life. You know, you're standing there, you got your red Solo cup, with or without a little something with watermelon juice. You know what I mean? And you're socializing, walking around. You know, you're upright. You're getting your steps in. You know what I mean? And you're living life. You're making those connections. You might be talking with somebody about, you know, expanding your business, your networking, whatever. You know, I mean, this is a possibility for an event. And you don't have to wash the dishes. You don't have to clean out the punch bowl. You throw that watermelon away when you're done. You see what I'm saying? So this overlaps with your financial, in that your networking and all this other stuff. And this is how you win. You know what I mean? And now this overlap, you're increasing each of the circles towards the middle. Okay? So you can overlap that a little bit, you can overlap that a lot of bit. You can completely overlap. Where you're having the barbecue at your house. And you have a place to park the car, and then there's some tree line, and then there's a place to have the event. Now you can charge everybody $5 to park and call it a nature walk and put an ag exemption on your property. And every weekend event, you're charging for parking and you're zoned as a nature walk because you went down there and you looked at what it took to qualify via the government requirements, rules and regulations. So now you're renting out your backyard as a venue. You're renting out your front yard as parking spaces for the venue. You have a nature walk from the parking spot to the venue. Now you're, 5-10 acres of farmland or, hills or whatever is a asset. It's making money. People are walking. That's your exercise. People are drinking the good watermelon. Along the walk on both sides, you can have corn growing with like spaghetti squash across the ground cover and tomato plants using the corn stalks for a trellis. And at the events, you can be eating the actual food that your land is producing right there beside the thing. And now, when you hire somebody to mow your grass, that's a write-off. When you buy that, $22,000 Ferris zero-turn riding mower that'll mow grass going 33 miles per hour, now that's an asset for the estate that your gardener uses. And now you're renting out your gardener to go mow other people's grass. So you get this LLC, this side job or whatever like that. Now you go with this dude while he's mowing the grass. You walk around with the weed eater, and now your side hustle mowing grass, and you're getting your exercise in, getting your steps in. You're out there doing stuff. Come back home, have a drink of watermelon juice, whatever. You see what I'm saying? And you just make it make sense and get it how you live. And in the process of this, you actually live. And the whole time, you're hedging your bets that you're not going to spend your wealth trying to get your life back because you're just healthy anyway. Because for 55 years, you've been active. drive the truck and help the new guy weed eat, mow the grass, and you can let this thing run itself. They just keep moving on to the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. Whole time telling everybody about Jesus. Now you're laying up treasure in heaven. You see what I'm saying? So that's your number one goal. You know what I mean? I'm fit, I'm healthy, I got great advice. I'm talking with people, encouraging them that all of this came from reading the Bible, and it really did. You know what I mean? Now, even if I'm just driving across America, you know, guerrilla gardening when I take a shit at the rest stop, planting apple trees, you know, it's all encouragement. It's all good. You know, it's good shit. And keeping it real, and keeping it viable, and keep trucking. You know what I mean? And you just keep going no matter what. No matter what, you just keep going. And when you're tired and you're down and out, and it's real difficult, and you're you know, falling asleep at the wheel, you just put on some Jesus music and just sing like you're standing on the courtroom floor and in the great court of heaven. You're just freaking little drummer boy over here. You know what I'm saying? Pa-rum-pa-pum-pum. Just getting it. You know what I'm saying? And it makes sense. And that overlaps with your highest priority, putting God first. The Bible has a promise. This all comes back to this promise. Put God first, and He will add everything else to you. You know what I mean? I'm just telling you stuff you already know. Maybe you're a knuckle dragger and just didn't put two and two together. It's very hard to articulate these things, but it's worth it. Another promise in the Bible says, let patience have its perfect work, and then you will be complete, lacking nothing. Right here, right now, I'm perfectly satisfied. I feel like I'm doing the will of God, sharing this with you guys. And I know God's got me tomorrow. I ain't even worried about that. I'm going to focus on doing right here, right now. The present is a present from God. This moment will never be recreated. I am living my life to the full right now. And it's a beautiful thing. And you can do that too. You can do that too. And it's going to look very specific because your fingerprints are different than mine. But we're all co-workers in this deal. You know what I mean? Like your assignment, your age and stage and everything is different than mine. And that's okay. Your value is different than mine. The way that people look at it. But God is no respecter of persons. He is no respecter of persons. He's going to put you in the situation He created you. He built you. He knit you together specifically, already knowing the path you'd be on, the choices you would make, and everything else. And His gifts are without repentance. If He makes you a good singer, and you sing about the devil's nonsense, He will not take your gift away from you. But it's your responsibility to use your gift for the light, for what's good. And you're gonna mess it up. And He made a provision for that too. Jesus died. He gave His blood. He paid the debt of sin for you. You, out of respect, need to do good to say, hey, thanks. Sure, okay, cool. But 10 million times more, you should do good just to experience doing good and feel the benefit that I have right now of living in the present. Because it's a present. The present is a present. And if I can have the presence of God right here, right now, which I believe I have, to be honest with you, it's a perfect moment. I'm not hungry. I'm not thirsty. I feel like I'm doing God's will. The sun is peeking through the sky right now. Like light beams are coming through the side. You know, this is focused on the storm a little bit, but there's light peeking through on the side here. I give all credit for everything good in my life to God, and I take the credit for the mistakes, and I try to learn from them and try to better the world, because I like doing it, okay? Because I enjoy it. You know what I mean? Forget all this, whether or not you go to heaven or whether or not God likes it or anything else like that. Just set all that on the shelf. Let's look at the circle of enjoy life and feel like you're alive and feel like you're living. That's where I'm at right now. That is where I'm at. It's beyond peace. I mean, yeah, I have peace and everything. Don't get me wrong. But I actually enjoy driving. It's cool. I like it. The thought that they're paying me to do it is, I kind of feel like I'm getting over on them. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, cool. Like, all right, you know. And then like, all the hassle factor. Somebody else is doing the paperwork. I don't have to buy the tires. I don't care what the fuel pump says. I haven't looked at the price of fuel at the pump in years. I don't even care. When I go to the store and buy stuff, I just go to the store and I buy what's on sale for the meat, because it's a variety that way, right? And beef aged literally tastes better, so it makes a lot of sense to me. And then if I park and then walk, I can generally go someplace that I get a better deal, and I get the exercise, and I feel good about that.
There are police reported ahead.
Yeah, he's right there. It's pretty awesome. And I would like you guys to enjoy your life. You know what I mean? I mean, for real, like, if whatever's bothering you, and anxiety, and, you know, guessing, you know, trying to predict the future to whatever degree, you got to take a break from that. You know what I mean? Like, just like with the seasons of eating, you know, you got to take a break and just live. This truck is clean, but I drove through salt a bunch, and it was kind of coated in white. Well, at the truck stop, I just barely sprayed water on the windshield, and it knocked all the salt off. So now I'm driving, and I'm coming in and out of these rain squalls, and it's rinsing the whole truck off. So that's saving me time and like $100. Because that's what it costs to wash the truck and trailer, is $100. You know what I mean? So just like, I'm just being blessed. You know? So it, you know, it's raining. Yeah, somebody out there is like upset about the rain or whatever. Somebody's, you know, got other issues going on today. And they're not living the way I'm living. And that's, I'm not trying to rub your nose in it or anything like that. I'm saying that God's that good. I'm saying that I love it. I love God. I love my life. You know what I mean? I'll probably make a video complaining, getting all poopy pants, and, you know, being some type of pussy at some point, because we all have moments of weakness, and that's okay. That's okay. I've had enough of that. that right now I love my life. So I thank God for the struggle. I just see the deal where they were at one of them German camps where they had them people there killing them. And they moved from camp to camp. And these ladies got put in there, cell 68. And they's Christian and everything like that. And they were in there. And that one, they started getting eat up with fleas. And that one told that other one, well, the Bible says to give thanks. So they thanked God for their food. They thanked God that they were alive. And then the lady prayed and says, and we thank you for these fleas. And the other one's like, man, I don't know if I can go that far to thank God for these fleas, because they're getting eat up. Anyway, it was a major no-no to have a Bible study or any kind of preaching or just Christian activity. It's frowned on, and everybody would come to cell 68 and they would have Bible studies, and a lot of people got saved, and a lot of people went to the gas chamber and died. They were killing them, and they were getting saved before they died. A lot of people never heard the gospel. And years and years later, the war's over, and then they had a chance to go. They went to some kind of court deal, and one of the ladies was still alive. She's real old by now, and she sees that guard, and it's like getting closure or whatever like that. So they got together, and of course the guy feels bad about it and everything. And they're like, but why did you let us have the Bible study? It's like, do you realize all the people that got saved? Because it was a large number of people got saved. Because they were just cycling people through there. And, they'd work them over here, work them over there, bring them to this place, do some experimentation, and then kill them. And anyway, so this Nazi dude, says, well, we knew that cell 68 had all them fleas, so that's why we never went in there. So the thing that you hate, the thing that is that thorn in your side, that's just got you eat up, that might be what God's using to spread the gospel. And these people come over here, they're like, death to America, we're going to have Sharia law and all this kind of stuff like that. Well, when they come over here and they start having 8 kids and their 8 children, see the difference between a Christian life and, life under Sharia law, they don't take them but about half a second to figure out what's bullshit and what ain't. They don't take but about half a second to legitimately look at the two and give a logical comparison and figure out what's evil and what's righteous. So God's saving these people. God's saving these people. And God's saving these people when He brings all these migrants into the West, and then they all have an opportunity to witness Christianity, and then a lot of them get sent back home to spread the gospel. Like, if you're God and it's the end times, and it's your will that none would perish, would you not use greed and this fake refugee stuff and blah blah blah, and then use the enemy to infiltrate, to try to take over, and put pressure on these spoiled brats? And then the result of that is the next generation of Christians. They say that they said something about over there in Palestine. Something about every time they kill one terrorist, it makes 9 more terrorists. And the same thing with it's like the martyrdom type of deal. You know what I mean? Every time you make a martyr out of somebody, the movement gets stronger type of deal. And if you're not evangelizing and you know that you're supposed to be, shame on you. Shame on you. whatever opportunity you have to live out the Bible in front of everybody else in this late hour, in the grand scheme of history, you have that opportunity and you're not. You know what I mean? Like, get on it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can argue about what day of the week it is. Okay, I got you. I understand. You know, and we can debate amongst ourselves and just beat each other down because, like, what day is Jesus' birthday? You know what I mean? Okay, yeah, that seems like, you know, Bible trivia hour type stuff. Well, like, what about love of neighbor? What about feed the, you know, clothe the needy? You know what? You know, he says you're poor, blind, and naked. Come and buy from me clothing and real food. You know what I mean? Like, what is this clothing? What is this covering? You know, is Jesus your husband or not? Is Jesus really God or a prophet? You know? Hey, when you sit down and compare this stuff, just open the Bible and read the Bible to them. You're planting a seed, you're fertilizing, or you're about to harvest, depending on what age and stage the individual's at. And there's no way to know. But God knows, and the Holy Ghost knows. You see what I'm saying? So now, like, you got this purpose and mission and just, like, freaking take over the earth for Jesus, right? Or that's where your heart's at. And that's allowing you to receive instruction from on high. You know what I'm saying? And now this other stuff, because you're distractionaries, you know, money, hassles, job, whatever, because you took the time to sort these things out and actually look at a budget, actually look at your diet, actually plan your exercise appropriate for what you're doing. Now, like, you can think clearly. You know what I mean? Part of my necessary daily activity is to read the Bible. Now, do I do that every day? No. Okay, but when it's been a while and I do, you know what it feels like? It feels the same way as if I don't eat. If I don't eat for 3 or 4 days and I take a drink of water, that is the best water I've ever drank. If I read the Bible, something I've read 100 times, but it's been a while since I've read that particular, and that's what I needed today, and I randomly opened the Bible. You know, I'm like, well, show me what I need, Lord, help. Open the Bible and start reading. And then I'm reading this, and it just feels like a drink of water, you know what I mean? And then it's just like, what did you want me to see? And I think about my particular location, as in address, as in my age and stage, as in the hour of history, like what day in his story, what page am I on? Right? So God's bringing me this information of this scripture I've read 100 times, but he brought it to me today, right now, in this moment, on this timeline, for me specifically. Why? And in that thought process and concept, I listen. And then I'm like, who, what, when, where, why, how, and all my investigative reporting observations kick in. You know what I mean? Have you ever read something in the Bible and wondered, why did God show me that? And then write down on a piece of paper who, what, when, where, why, and how, and then proceed to read it again with each one of those words in mind? Who? What? When? Where? Why? How? They just know that God's giving you that scripture that day, in that moment of His story, history. It's epic, bro. It's epic. That's living life. That's living life. You know what I'm saying? Like I see this stuff about brain waves and the way you think makes you manifest and all certain kind of stuff or whatever like that. It's Skittles. You know what I mean? Okay, cool, yeah. Those notions, put that away. It's like candy and it's bright and everything else like that. But it ain't Thanksgiving dinner at Grandma's house. You know what I'm saying? You want Skittles or do you want to eat Thanksgiving dinner and get your belly full in a warm, welcoming house where you can take a nap and wake up and eat some more pie? You know what I mean? Do you want to be on the go, stop at the gas station, grab a bag of Skittles, take off driving all night, beat your legs to try to stay awake with the radio blasting and the window down just to get it? Well, I guess there's a time and a place for that. Skittles. Or do you want Grandma's house on Thanksgiving where you can eat? You can talk to, Cousin Larry and hear about the stories, and you can honor Grandpa that, is just glad to see everybody this one last time. You can feel the love of Grandma in every bite of the food. You can prop your feet up, watch the sports ball. You sit on the back porch with a beer, talk to your cousins. Remember that time with this and that? Yeah. Sure miss that old GTO. Fellowship, kinfolk. Pretty good. Pretty good. If you don't have that, you need to go down there to church. Get affiliated with a church. You know what they do at church? It's a big house and people get together, they talk like that and everything, they eat and stuff. You got one guy that, he's kind of a dictator, and he'll get up there and talk a lot, and you'll be ready to leave it. He'll keep talking, and you need that. You need that. You need that. You got to get off these clocks, these schedules, and gotta go right now. Gotta go right now. Gotta go. Right now, hurry. How many times I've heard somebody at a church say something to the now this could be a Sunday church, this could be a Saturday church, this could be a Wednesday church, but everybody shows up twice on Sunday. I've heard it at every establishment that's ever brought it up. When they take a day off to observe the Sabbath and close their business, they make more money than when the business is open 7 days a week. That is a fact. That is a fact that defies understanding. And to quantify how that's possible is there's a lot to be said about it that I'm not going to get into because it's an hour and 15 minutes to just another short 5-minute ministry video. Oh man, I think this is the 3rd hour-long video I've made today. This is a good one though. I really love it live, and I just pray right now. Just Heavenly Father, I want to lift up everybody listening. I just ask, Lord, that you give them a present today, right now. increase their focus on your business, and that they would write down their own business and itemize, make these circles, bubbles, cloud, and then put your smiling face above the cloud. That would be great. Actually look at a page and see all the thoughts and the bubbles and the circles, and go through this thing, and then maybe maybe a 40-day fast, 20 minutes a day with a pencil and paper doing this thing would be mucho bueno. So I pray, Lord, that someone be inspired to just, slow down and do. Slow down and do. And don't worry about the mistakes. Worry about focusing on what's important.
Welcome to Louisiana.
Right. And welcome to Louisiana. All right, rock out.